SEC championship, Big 12 championship, Georgia versus Bama, Texas versus Oklahoma State. Who should you be paying attention to when these games are live? We will tell you about them next, coming up on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I'm your boy Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and senior draft analyst, but I got to kick this intro over to my guy, Mr. LSU, 2019 national champion with the LSU Bengal Tigers, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Coach. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez. Yes, the other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, and a 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers. And DP, we talking championships, right? We have conference championship. There's a whole lot of champ talk going on this podcast today. DP, we're going to start off, man. We're going to talk about this Bama versus Georgia matchup, SEC matchup. We've gotten this matchup, 3 of the last 4 years in the SEC championship. We're going to tell you what prospects to look out for because they're going to shift the dynamic of who's going to win this game. Then we're going to Big 12 country. We got Texas. We got Quinn Ewers. We have Oklahoma State going at it for the Big 12 championship. Like I said, there's a lot of championship level content going on this podcast. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Keith, Bama, Georgia, SEC championship game. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. What offensive prospects do the fans need to keep their eyes on during this contest?
I'm gonna start with Georgia, DP, and I'm gonna go straight to their quarterback, right, Carson Beck. And I want to tell people that when I watch this Georgia team, this is a team that they don't win how they used to win, right? Where it was like dominant defense, and then we're gonna run the ball and a couple play action shots, right? This is a team that they have weapons, right? They can sling the rock some. Carson Beck is a more talented quarterback than what Stetson Bennett was. But I also still look at this team. You know what I compare it to a lot, DP? Almost like the San Francisco 49ers, right, of the NFL, because they have non-traditional playmakers, right? Lad McConkey kind of flies under the radar, but he's a do-it-all type of guy. That's kind of like your Deebo Samuel-ish type play, right? And then obviously you're going to draw the comparison of Brock Bowers and George Kittle, right? Where they can run an entire offense through a tight end because he's a playmaker. And then when you look at the running backs, they don't have Christian McCaffrey right back there, but they have a stable of running backs that honestly they're getting better and better throughout the entire year. So I want to start with Georgia. It's those guys, right? It's Carson Beck. It's I forgot to mention Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle, right? It's Cedric Van Pran at the center position. Then you get into the skill position with Lad McConkey, who's a baller, and then you get into Brock Bowers also. So the Georgia side, that's the prospects. I think if Georgia's going to win this game, and they've had a ton of close games, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be because those guys play well.
Yeah, I like the Carson Beck name pull, Keith, because of the fact that now they have an offense that can go into a shootout and that they feel like they're comfortable to win, where it wasn't like that with Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett was better playing with the lead. And when I look at the offensive side of the ball, like you said, Amarius Mims is going to be huge for this offense, right? Him, Logan Truss, like Cedric Van Pran, Rutledge, like their offensive line is top tier in terms of NFL prospects. And Mims is going to have this is going to be kind of a statement game for him, a resume game going against this pass rush for Alabama that we're going to get to in a second. But yeah, I think also, like you talked about with Lad McConkey, he's going to be big, man, because you expect Bama to try and take away Brock Bowers, and Lad McConkey is fast. He can run routes. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can motion. He can do a lot of different things for an offense, and NFL teams got to keep their eyes on him.
But DP, who you have with the Alabama side, right? We talk about offensive skill weapons. We've seen the emergence of Jalen Milroe as a thrower, but also as a game-changing running quarterback also. And you know they have Jermaine Burton, right? We've seen, Isaiah Bond, right, made the game-winning touchdown against Auburn. We're not sure if they have the tight end yet, right? And I think this receiver core is still emerging. And then you look into the running backs, and you look at the running back field right there, Jace McClellan, they'll run in Rodell Williams from time to time. So when you look at this Alabama offense, DP, who sticks out to you as far as offensive skill players, or even if you want to just point straight to the offensive line and feel like it's up to them to win this game?
Man, I think the ability to run the ball without Jalen Milroe is going to be big, Keith. And I'm keeping my eyes on Jace McClellan, the running back, man. He's the leading rusher right now, 800 yards on the season, almost 5 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns. Of course, Jalen Milroe will be factored into that. But this young man can play ball, and I'm happy to see him having a good season because he was, a very talented kid coming out of high school, right? So now you look at him, and then that goes back to you talking about play action, RPO game, QB zone read, then you get the deep shots off of it. And Jermaine Burton, a guy that now, like, talk about having a bounce back year, having the year we expected. Jermaine Burton showcases the speed, the athleticism, the high point ability, and he's only listed at 6 foot, so he might be 5'11". You know how you can't really trust college measurements. He might be 5'11", but you see him go up and attack the ball like he's a big wide receiver. The phrase that we use, Keith, as scouts, he plays bigger. He plays big, and that's what I love about him. So I think in this matchup against this secondary, which is talented for the Georgia Bulldogs, you're going to have to get Jermaine Burton going. But of course, you got to go to the offensive line as well, Keith. And J.C. Latham, we talked about Amarius Mims. J.C. Latham, man, an absolute stud. Talking about patient footwork, calculated movement as a pass protector, strong, heavy-handed puncher, can literally latch his hands into a guy, stonewall and stop momentum. He's one of my favorite tackle prospects in a loaded tackle class, right? He's a true right tackle, and teams that need that in this draft, especially in the first round, they got to keep their eyes on this matchup because, again, Michael Walker, all those guys from the Georgia defensive line, he is going to be tested, but man, he's an absolute stud, Keith.
Well, yeah, DP, and I want to just mention one guy real quick, Kendrick Law. He's the kind of, for Alabama, he's the versatile kind of do-it-all, jet sweep, handoffs. He does everything, right? He's one of those guys that had thick lower half. But real quick, DP, before we transition, man, listen, you mentioned Georgia defense, right? You mentioned Michael Williams. I'm going to throw in Nazir Stackhouse. I'm going to throw in Small Mondine, Kamari Lassiter at cornerback, Javon Bullard at safety, Malachi Starks, right, at the other safety position. Real quick, DP, for the Georgia defense, who needs to stand out for you as far as making plays for this Georgia defense?
I think it's Small Mondine and Javon Bullard. And the reason why Javon Bullard, he can play that high safety, he can walk down into the box and kind of play some nickel as well. Good coverage defender, good ball skills, and ability to track and cover ground. But Small Mondine, I think he is going to be big on this for this game because somebody's going to have to spy Jalen Milroe. You're not going to play man to man and leave Milroe to be able to hurt you with his legs play after play after play. So being able to spy him without sacrificing much, right? Like without doing what Auburn did, 2 rushers and 1 spy. Like you can't do that. So I think they're going to need Small Mondine to be the athletic guy that he is in the middle of that defense to try and spy, could keep Jalen Milroe in the pocket, right? And try to force him to just win only with his arm and not with his legs.
Yeah, and then, okay, let's wrap this up with the Alabama defense, right? And I'm going to name off, and I'm going to talk about this secondary because we know the front with Chris Braswell, Dallas Turner, right? Tim Keenan, Justin Eboigbe, Jaheim Otis. It's copy and paste for the Alabama front. But DP, the secondary is the part that we've had to see mature from this team. And that's, I'm going to start with cornerback Terrion Arnold, then true freshman safety Caleb Downs, right? Then you had Jalen Key. Then you have Kool-Aid McKinstry at the other corner position, and then Malachi Moore. DP, out of those 3 players, who's the player that needs to show up the most for Alabama to win this game?
I'm not going with the obvious name here, Keith. I'm going with Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore has to show up. He has to show up because we know what to expect from Terrion Arnold. He's taking a jump this year. He's worked with OD3, Oliver Davis III, one of the best cornerback coaches in the business, on the market, right? He works with some of the best DBs. He worked with him this summer. You can see it paying off, right? Kool-Aid McKinstry, stud, right? We know what to expect from him. Caleb Downs is a young baller himself, okay? But Malachi Moore is the guy that he has to play well because I expect Georgia's offensive coordinator to try to isolate him, especially with Brock Bowers, right? Not just Brock Bowers, but also with Lad McConkey, right? So he's got to play well. If he plays well and the rest of the guys like work his business as usual, right? They operate and do their thing. I think this Alabama defense has a great shot of slowing down this high-powered Georgia offense.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I expect Georgia to do the same thing that LSU did, right? Take their best wide receiver and put him at slot. That's what LSU did with Malik Neighbors. I expect Georgia to do the same thing with Lad McConkey, get him on Malachi Moore, and he's going to have to make a play. Then we also know that Brock Bowers, he's kind of in the middle of the field, right? He operates in the middle of the field. So Malachi Moore has a tall task, right? He has to step up, make some plays if this Bama defense wants to play well and stop this Georgia offense from getting humming and getting going. But DP, I say this championship content the entire draft, this entire podcast, right? So we're on to the Big 12, man. We got a Texas versus Oklahoma State matchup that we're about to break down. Stay tuned.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by PrizePicks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Guys, with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports and or leagues. For example, Kevin Durant, George Kittle at a 10.5 point combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. Do you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. This week on PrizePicks, I am taking Patrick Mahomes versus the Green Bay Packers for a slightly less than 271.5 passing yards. So guys, all you need to do, let's go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Big 12, Texas versus Oklahoma, ... State. Because everybody expected Oklahoma to be here. Quinn Ewers, got to start there, Keith. You know what I mean? On the offensive side of the ball. Now, there's rumors that he may go back to Texas for one more year. Okay, because he's battled injuries the past 2 years and it's kind of taken some time off the field from him. This is a pure passer, right? Accurate timing. He could hit all 3 levels of the defense. Ball placement is good, right? He throws a beautiful ball, catchable ball. The main thing for me is like, all right, can you exploit this defense? You don't have Jonathan Brooks now, right? So you don't have your top tier runner, but they have a stable of backs that I think with the guys that they have, anybody can break for 100 yards if you're not careful, right? The thing is, what's up with Xavier Worthy? Because I think he got hurt in their last game. I saw him walk off the field, go into the locker room. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. I'm not sure if, what's going on with that. Yeah, I didn't do the, apologies. I didn't do my pre-show research on that. I didn't have a chance. But if Xavier Worthy is not there, can he dominate? Can Quinn Ewers dominate this game and score enough points by getting the ball back to Jatavian Sanders, but also high volume targets for Adonai Mitchell?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with, the 2 players that I'm looking at, because we know Xavier Worthy can offer a team right now. And I do expect him to play. But when you talk about AD Mitchell, right, 6'3", 6'4", 200 pounds, has showed consistently, man, to just be a playmaker, right? Route runner, be able to get open, push vertical, work underneath. He can do multiple things, but then also a key player for me, DP. And we talked about this months ago, Jatavian Sanders, right? I don't think he gets enough credit and just due for the flex tight end that he is. And he's a guy that I expect this draft stock to elevate as we go through this process. And you're talking about draft stock elevating, it starts with situations like this, right? Big 12 championship game, everybody looking at you, all eyes are watching your game, right? So I'm expecting Jatavian Sanders, but I do agree with you, DP, because Quinn Ewers, we're talking about a case study, right? And what he is, you expect him to win this game, but have we got a dominant performance? Like his last dominant performance was week 2 against Bama, right? Obviously, we know he was hurt, and then the rest of it has just kind of been, that's cool, right? I think that's what you say when you watch it. You're like, oh, that's cool. But you want to see a high level performance from Quinn Ewers, because you never know, right? Like the ties can shift just that much. I'm more than sure him or his camp thinking about coming back, because he has yet to play a complete season, and maybe his draft stock has sunken a little bit or fallen a little bit because of that. But if you play well in the Big 12 championship game, get Texas to the college football playoff and go on a run, then guess what? You might as well come out, right? I don't think it's going to rise any higher than that. But DP, I want to go to this Oklahoma State team. Listen, we're not going to skip over Oklahoma State. We're going to talk about Oklahoma State a little bit. I know there's a running back, DP, that you want to highlight as a key player in this game.
Of course, Ollie Gordon II, man. Listed at 6'1", 211, 215 pounds. This young man on the season, 245 carries, 1,580 yards rushing, 20 rushing touchdowns. He's forced 59 missed tackles. This is a big physical guy, and for this offense, right? They are scheme versatile. They run zone and gap. He has over 200 snaps rushing the gap. You're talking about being a power run team down the hill, and he can do that, right? So for me, he's going to be a big part. Now, guys, when I'm highlighting him, understand he's not eligible. He's not eligible for the 2024 NFL draft. He's next year, but you talk about an impact player. But Keith, I also want to go real quick to the receiving room, and it's a small guy. He's about 5'8", 100 75, 80 pounds. Brendan Presley. He's their leading receiver, their slot guy, quick twitch, good route runner, knows how to get open, find soft spots in the zone. He knows how to make himself available and make plays after the catch as well. They're going to need, because their passing offense is okay. It's not great. And if we're going to get into Texas's defensive line in a little bit, and when we start rattling off those names, if those names ball out the way we expect, and Ollie Gordon has been neutralized, your passing attack is going to have to make plays, and Brendan Presley is going to be a big part of that. But also, Keith, one other name offensively for me for OK State is going to be their center, Joe McConkey. And for me, 6'4", 303-pound guy. And like I said, with T'Vondre Sweat, we're going to talk about in a minute, all those big boys on that defensive line for Texas. Like Mike is going to have, Joe McConkey is going to have to make his name known, right? Move guys off the ball, double team, climb to the second level, pick off these linebackers, create running lanes. Because if he's snapping the ball and getting driven back, nothing for this offense is going to be able to work.
Yeah, DP, listen, you keep hinting at it. You know what? We just going to go ahead and do it, right? Talk about this Texas defense and this defensive line. We're talking about big T'Vondre Sweat, interior defensive lineman that with 6'3", 6'4", 350 pounds, right? Big boy. That's a lot. You got to move, right? Even you talk about double team, you talk about this inside zone run for Oklahoma State. Then I want to go to a guy that's flying under the radar, but I just finished my final evaluation on him, and that's interior defensive lineman Byron Murphy, polar opposite, right? He's 6'1", 290, right? But he's just as disruptive, right? Then you go to Alfred Collins, right? And you continue to look at this Texas defensive line. They have it's Texas defense, period, right? You look at Alfred Collins, Ethan Burke. Then you go to Barron Sorrell, right? A guy that was a hot name coming into the season. Then you look at these linebackers, right? They have freshman Anthony Hill, Jalen Ford, and then I continue to look at Jaron Thompson, who's emerged as a playmaker. Then also Ryan Watts, who's a senior transfer, who I believe was at Ohio State for a minute. So they have a lot of players on this defense for Texas. DP, where do you exactly want to pinpoint as a key to win this game for Texas, especially defensively?
I want to start with T'Vondre Sweat and then move to Byron Murphy, because T'Vondre Sweat, when he is on those rundowns, right, and if you stuff the run, you make it 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, they get minimal yards on first and second down, then that goes to your point about Byron Murphy. Now you allow the 6'1", 295 pound, quick twitch, strong pass rusher to get into the face of the quarterback, right? Rush up the field and create pressure. Him and Barron as well. Like this defensive line, like their success is going to start with T'Vondre Sweat and those guys stopping that run game and forcing OK State to pass the ball, which is they're not great at. Right, they're not great at. That's why I was hoping for Oklahoma, but nonetheless. So, that's where for me, when I look at the defense, it's gonna start with T'Vondre Sweat, especially in those early downs, and it's gonna finish with Byron Murphy, and then the rest of those athletic rushers getting after the quarterback.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. I think Byron Murphy, especially with Oklahoma State and this passing attack, right, and how they want to play football, this is his type of game, right? Like, man, go get the quarterback. If they're going to drop back 50 times a game, guess what? You go get them 50 times a game, and that's just how we have to play. But this
resume game uploading, man. Resume game uploading.
I'm excited to see cornerback Watts also, because I believe he's like a 6'2" corner. We see how these cover 3 corners emerge, right? And they show that they can cover, make plays on the football. Their stock elevates tremendously, right? And we know how many teams in the NFL runs cover 3. But man, that's the playmakers, right? When we talk about Texas versus Oklahoma State, it's going to come down to those key players. So make sure y'all stay tuned and tap in for that. But speaking of staying tuned and staying tapped in, the game picks are coming. Now we get to go and decide who's going to win this game. And like yesterday, DP, we got an interesting twist that we're going to add to the game picks.
Whenever the game clock stops, guys, that's time to order in with DoorDash. After I've eaten all my watch party favorites, I'm talking pizza, wings, soda, burgers, whatever, chips, dip, whatever I have to watch the games on Sunday, especially big games, Saturdays and Sundays. What's next after that big plate? Dessert. And if you got a sweet tooth like me, you're going to love this option, guys. I live in the Greenville County area of South Carolina, and one of my favorite dessert spots is the Cheesecake Factory. Me and my family love it. They have an assortment of different flavors and varieties that should tickle anyone's fancy, right? You should be able to tap into whatever you like, because they will have it, okay? So what you can do, you can order and have it dropped off right at your front door. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCKED23. Let me repeat that one more time. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and use the code LOCK23. As December gets closer, the weather gets colder. The NFL offers stays running hot on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Guys, right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Let me say it again. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, first things first, guys. Let's stop thinking, okay? Let's put some action and let's get to it, right? Go ahead and join today, right now, while you're talking to me. But there's no better time or place to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season, because FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Like yesterday's pod, Keith, we closed it out. You did a tale of the tape between the teams, right? Now we got 4 teams, we got 2 games. Let's hit the tail of the tape and let's pick these games.
There we go, DP, real quick. Let's go through this, man. We're going to start with the Alabama versus Georgia matchup, the SEC championship. Simple as put. Are you taking Carson Beck at quarterback, or are you taking Jalen Milroe? Who's winning that battle?
This is tough, but I'm going to go. I like both of these guys a lot. I'm going to go Jalen Milroe, Keith, because I know Carson Beck is somewhat athletic. He can make some plays with his legs, but I know that Jalen Milroe is an absolute problem. You know what I mean? He can throw the ball and he's a dominant runner. So give me Jalen Milroe in this situation.
Yeah, I'm going to give Jalen a slight edge just because of the running ability. I think he can run for 150 yards if he wants to, but that's no slight to Carson Beck, right? No, because Carson Beck can go in there and sling it. I think he has the potential to sling it for 330 if he wants to. Like, if he can go in there and make some plays, he can sling it for 330. So I'm going to give Jalen the slight edge in this situation, just because if it comes down to having to run and make plays and extend plays, he can do that. But that is no slight to Carson Beck in that situation. DP, it's time to talk about that backfield, right? You have Georgia with the emergence of Kendall Milton, right? Then you have Dawan Edwards, Cash Jones, right? But this has been the Kendall Milton show. And then you have Alabama, right? When you talk about Jace McClellan, Roy Dale Williams. So which backfield are you taking?
I'm gonna go with Georgia. I'm gonna go with Georgia right now. The way Kendall Milton's running, the way Dawan Edwards is running, those boys are running physical, hard, downhill, north and south, and they're making plays happen. They're keeping this offense on schedule. So I'm gonna go with Georgia right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Let's transition to this offensive line. I'm gonna start with Georgia's offensive line, right? You're talking about Xavier Truss, you're talking about Tate Ratledge, you're talking about Cedric Van Pran, and you're also talking about Amarius Mims for this Georgia offensive line. But then you go to the other side, right? The other team, you're talking about Caden Proctor, the true freshman, right? You're talking about Seth McGoughlin, the senior. Then you're talking about J.C. Latham, the potential top 10 pick. DP, if you had to take one offensive line or the other, which offensive line are you taking?
I'm gonna go with Georgia's offensive line. They're very experienced. Those guys know how to play. You know, they play a lot of ball for the most part, and I think they have studs. They have some of my favorite offensive linemen in this draft. They got multiple, right? Center Cedric Van Pran and Amarius Mims. I'm gonna go with Georgia here.
I'm right there with you, DP. I love JC Latham, right? But I don't think we've even gotten to the level of talking about Amarius Mims enough to what he could be. And then you add in Cedric Van Pran and Xavier Truss. Man, I think all of those are high level players. I think JC Latham is the best player on Alabama's offensive line, and then I think there's a step down, right? We even seen Caden Proctor, the freshman, struggle a little bit, and they had to bring in Elijah Pritchard from time to time to play that offensive tackle position. DP, let's go to this wide receiver core, right? We're going to look at Georgia's wide receiver core. We talked about Lat McConkey. We have Dominic Lovett. We have Arian Smith, Ra Thomas, and then Marcus Rosemy Jack Saint. That's a hell of a name right there, DP. That's a hell of a name. Then you go to look at Alabama's wide receiver core, right? We talked about the emergence of Isaiah Bond. We talked about Jermaine Burton playing up to what he needs to play to. We talk about Malik Benson, right? And then we also talked about Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice. What wide receiver group are you taking?
I'm gonna actually take Alabama's. I like the well-roundedness more of that compared to, especially with the matchup. More speed, more kind of shifty guys that can move around a lot more. Whether I think Georgia has more of the bigger body, bigger frame guys that they're still good athletes, but they don't give you the change of direction and the run after catch explosiveness that I think Bama's receivers does.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna go with Alabama's wide receiver core. Also, just because I've seen them, you talking about depth wise, I've seen more of those guys be involved and make plays. Listen, tight end, we're gonna throw that out the window. That's Brock Bowers. That's Georgia. That's Brock Bowers. Right? There's no reason to compare. But let's go ahead and wrap this thing up with the defense. DP, you're taking Alabama's defense with Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, or you're taking Georgia's defense, right? Who they're better in the back end, right? Potentially with Malachi Starks and Javon Bullard, right, and Kamari Lassiter. So which defense are you taking?
I'm taking Bama's defense here, Keith. I think Georgia's defense may be a little bit better against the run, but the one thing that can hurt that Georgia's secondary is the lack of pass rush. And I know for a fact that Bama can pin their ears back and get after you, and they have a very good secondary as well. So give me Bama in this situation.
I'm right there with you. The pass rush, right? And then I think the underrated part has been Terrion Arnold and JaQuincy McKinstry. Like we said, it's all gonna fall on Malachi Moore and his ability to play that slide and be able to cover it in the passing attack, but then also show against the run, right? Because Georgia's gonna watch the film and they're gonna try to get him involved in some run fits. So DP, that's the tail of the tape. But who are you picking? Are you still picking Georgia? Are you picking Bama? What we have going on?
I'm going Alabama, Keith. I'm going Alabama in a close one. I think Nick Saban wants to. He's lost back-to-back games. If I remember correctly, I know his last game against Kirby Smart, he didn't win. So I know that he's going to want to get that dub back, and I think Jalen Milroe will be the MVP of this game.
DP, I am rooting for chaos. I am picking Alabama for the upset. I want a whole lot of chaos when the college football playoff committee have to see each other. I am rooting for chaos. I want them to leave out Alabama or Georgia and see how the rest of college football reacts to that. So I am all on the board for chaos. I don't think they'll do it. I want to put them in the most complex situations possible, DP. So I'm rooting for chaos. I also think Alabama's going to win this game. I think they've been playing better football, right? I think they have the momentum. It almost seems like they feel like they're a team of destiny at this moment, right? And they're hitting their stride at the right moment. And they also, how we talk about playoff teams in the NFL, right? Is when are you playing your best football? I think they're finally starting to play really good football, really confident. DP, let's go through with this Texas-Oklahoma State matchup, right? Tell her to take. I mean, it's probably going to lean a lot of different ways, right? So we talk about, I'm assuming we're going to pick Quinn Ewers, right? As far as, the quarterback matchup.
Yeah. This is like the Brock Powers thing. It's Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, it's Quinn Ewers, right? But look at the running back situation. You talked about Brooks being injured. Who do you think? Because I think this can dictate the game also. Which running back situation are you going with?
Oklahoma State. Like, they have the dude, man. Don't get me wrong. Texas has a stable of backs that can do a lot of different things. But Ollie Gordon is he's a hammer, man. He's a elite running back in college football. So I'm going okay, stay here.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this too. Wide receiver core. I'm assuming we're going to go Texas on this, right? Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders, Adonai Mitchell, right? We're going to go Texas on this. Offensive line, DP. I'm gonna go Texas again. You're talking about Christian Jones, the right tackle, right? But then they have a young guy on this Texas team that is playing really good football. That I think if he was draft eligible this year, Kelvin Banks, their left tackle, right? He would be another guy that we would talk about a lot. So I'm gonna take Texas offensive line in that. So I think the last thing to kind of wrap up with this kind of tail of the tape, which is not really tailing or taping, right, is the defense. What defense are you rolling?
Texas.
All right, so we're going to take context clues, DP, for this situation. I'm going to ask you, who do you think is going to win? But I think I know which way you're going.
I'm gonna go okay. I'm kidding. I'm going Texas.
You about to switch it up on me. I was like, hold on.
I'm going Texas. I think Texas is gonna win this game. It'll be hard fought for a while. I think they pull away late.
Yeah, man. You want to pay respect, right, to Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, his ability, right? He's seen an upset a time or two.
He's a man. Life, right? He's 40. You know what I'm saying? Come after him.
He's been a part of this Oklahoma State program. So they played Texas, they played Oklahoma. So I know his team won't be afraid, but I just think that this is one of the more talented rosters that, for whatever reason, nobody's talking about. As far as just being one of the more talented and balanced and well-rounded rosters. But DP, who's everybody's talking about? They're talking about the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, where we are bringing you championship level content every single podcast, man. We're talking about these championship games. We have more championship games that we're going to cover. We're going to cover all of them. So that way you guys know, right, when it comes down to everything, like, hey, who are the top prospects? Who are the guys? Who are the playmakers that's going to shift these games potentially, man? You know where to tap into us, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That is Damian Parson, man. You can find him on X at DP_NFL, man. We talking championship games, man. You know what you do. Y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we have ACC and Big Ten championship previews and prospects to know. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.